Good morning, everybody. Welcome to A Call with Dr. Cook. Today is Wednesday, December 29th. This is our last show in 2021. With me, as
We're
always,
wrapping up here.
Dr. Cook. We're hitting it fast now.
I know the year's gone fast. We say that every
Wow.
time we come on.
I know. I don't know. I used to, when I was young, I used to, tease people that would say things like that. And now I don't know. It just seems like things go faster and faster. But Dr. Cook, it's been a great year, and we're just really excited for today's and our topic today. We're going to be talking about quality of life, and I'm excited to tackle this on. I just remind everybody that you can see all of these on our website. You can see past topics, but Dr. Cook, we're excited. Quality of life, as we start into it, we've got a lot of people. We talk about improving the quality of life. And Limbic Arc, we know, doesn't diagnose, treat, or cure, and we're careful about that disclaimer. But what is a quality of life? What should we expect?
Well, is that the segue into this presentation, George?
Well, I think so, because it's I'm assuming you've got some great slides and everything that you're going to show us.
Well, I do. It's going to be awesome here. Let me bring them up.
Okay. I love your slides. You're so descriptive here.
Well, and I try to make them easy to translate, because sometimes we do translate these. So, here it is.
Look at that. Look, I almost knew your first slide. Did you see that?
I know. I said, how did you know that? It's got to be mental telepathy. Okay, so the Limbic Arc is designed to improve quality of life. And we say that all the time, but I thought, well, I wonder if people wonder, well, what is quality of life? Right. And this is basically what it is. Now, you can find research that divides these things into, more detail, but essentially it's these 5 areas, and it has to do with mental, spiritual, social, financial, and physical wellness.
Okay.
And sometimes we look at that and say, well, how can I improve any of those areas in my life? And sometimes we might feel like this guy, like, hey, I'm stuck. I'm in a situation that I have no control over. My quality of life is lacking for some reason. And, one option is to just sit there and wait for your fairy godmother to come and make everything better. But that's probably not going to happen. And so most of us, and I think probably all of us, look for answers. And there are a lot of good answers out there. I've just put some quotes in here from different people that relate to these different areas of our lives. And as we study these things and we get smarter and we make conscious decisions and conscious choices, hopefully it gets better. But when we do that, the important thing to remember is that the conscious efforts involve our brain, which processes our conscious brain, or our thinking brain, processes approximately 200,000 pieces of information every second, which makes us smart. We're really fast computers, but we have to remember that there is a part of us that is 200,000 times smarter than that, and that's the rest of us, because the rest of us processes over 400 million pieces of information in that same second. Now, this is where Limbic Arc comes in, because Limbic Arc does involve the conscious mind, but it doesn't rely on the conscious mind for the transmission of the information. And Limbic Arc only works with information. It's not medicine. We're not making some kind of a remedy or some kind of a potion and sending that to you. It's not a vibration. It's just not designed to treat a disease. And so you can't think of what we're doing in terms of, well, I go to the doctor and they give me some medicine and I get better. It's not that kind of a relationship. It's an information transfer. And when you select items, boost ingredients, in the cloud. And if you probably remember some of these images from prior calls.
Sure.
So we have stored in the cloud a database. It's a library of boost ingredients. And when you run a Spark scan, it scores all of those items and ranks them according to the score, which we call an outcome ratio. And then when you select the ones you want to include in your InfoBoost and activate the InfoBoost, that information is transmitted in an entanglement relationship that exists between you and your account and that library. And that information is transmitted then to you at the subconscious level, or the part of you that processes 400 million pieces of information every second. Now, the other part of this slide is when that transmission is received, it is applied in all areas of this triad of health, what we call the triad of health. So you may feel an emotional response, you may feel a functional response, you may feel an energetic response. But the important thing is, once you've introduced information into that triad of health in any area, it then has a spillover effect in every other area of your life. And here's another image that kind of sums this up, where everything in life is opposed by something else, and life is basically a dance of energy, of information, of function. It's just everything affecting everything. And so if you introduce information into your field, it will have some effect. Now, sometimes you don't notice that effect, but sometimes the effect is just an epiphany. It may be an idea that comes to your mind. Let me give you an example of this. And I mentioned this, but it's been a while since I talked about this. But gosh, it's been maybe a couple of years ago. I was having some pain in my elbow and my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. And I thought, well, I'll do an InfoBoost for this, because I had it for quite a while.
Right.
So I turned on an InfoBoost, and the pain didn't go away. But all of us, a couple of days later, I'm driving down the street, and it occurs to me, oh my gosh, this is caused by my keyboard. And I was using one of those little squishy keyboards, and I was having a repetitive use injury, essentially. And so I bought myself an ergonomic, and I've got a real crazy ergonomic keyboard now, and the pain went away. So the solution wasn't directly the InfoBoost. The solution was, I believe, initiated by the InfoBoost. It opened me up to the idea that, oh, here's the problem. Because honestly, I should have figured that out a long time before I did. And I think it's coincidental, or maybe not coincidental, that it occurred a couple of days after I turned on that InfoBoost. So that's one of the ways that InfoBoost can impact you. Sometimes you will have a miraculous event. You may have, let's say you have a problem with a relationship, and you do assert InfoBoost, and lo and behold, all of the tension in that relationship dissipates, and you no longer have that problem. And this has happened to me before as well. So all of these things are ways that you will experience the impact of additional information and correct information, helpful information into your field. Another slide I didn't put in here is sometimes you get very subtle changes. It's not always a miracle. It's not always epiphany. Sometimes it's just an incremental course correction. And frankly, I think that's most of the time, that's what we need. And so most of the time, that's what we get. And to the extent that you are, pardon?
No, I love that example, Dr. Cook, because, a lot of times you would think, oh my goodness, my shoulder hurts, or my arm hurts, or I'm experiencing pain. And so we immediately go and try and, figure out what's wrong with our arm. the tendons. We try to figure it out, and we'll go into pain, and we'll do different things like that, where the solution is completely something different.
Well,
I mean,
and we should do those things too, George. I mean, sometimes people will ask, or they'll ask questions that leads me to believe they think that if I turn on the InfoBoost, whatever my problem is will result in an outcome that I desire. Does that make sense?
yeah. So
In
it's
other
like
words,
we have intention as to how we want to fix the problem, but with Limbic Arc, it's not about how we think it should be solved. You know, we're now using information, and we're using all kinds of technology to be able to solve the problem in sometimes probably a much more elegant way.
correct. And I think we need to keep ourselves open to that possibility, because if you only are willing to accept the outcome that you have as an expectation in your mind, you may miss the mark as you start to get these course corrections that take you in a direction. For example, my keyboard example, you know, my pain didn't go away until I changed keyboards.
Right.
And I don't believe it would have had I not changed the keyboard. So it was the idea that led to the action that solved the problem. But without the action, the problem would not have been solved. So
Okay.
it just happens in subtle ways. And some of us are very sensitive to energy, and you turn on an info boost and you'll feel it. You'll feel an effect. Some are not. And I think as we introduce this to people who may not have experience with that energetic sensitivity, we need to just tell them, look, be open. It doesn't mean that everything that's good in your life from here on is the result of Limbic Arc, but it's very possible that a lot of those things that are good that happen from here on are the result of the info boost. So that's the reason why Limbic Arc can impact quality of life. And that's really what it's designed to do. Can it help you with your financial wellness? Yes, it can. Can it help you with your spiritual wellness? Yes, it can. And all of these other areas, it can have a positive impact, a life-changing impact. We just need to be open to it, and we need to be sensitive, and we need to be grateful. I mean, as things get better in my life, I should not forget to be grateful for that. So I
Well, and
am
it's
going to
interesting.
stop sharing my slides now, George.
Well, here's what's fascinating to me is we're whole humans. We have these complex lives, and um, maybe the solution to financial wellness is maybe it's mental, maybe it's a shift in the way we think, or maybe it's physical, or it could be all kinds of things. But to understand life as a whole, and an elevated life, as a whole thing. I tend to segment it, I guess, and maybe I'm the only person that does that, but that
You
helps me
probably
to
are.
understand. We're so interconnected with so many different aspects of our life, and living a holistic life is very different because it impacts so many things. So anyway,
Hey,
Dr.
that was a
Cook, thank
fast
you.
presentation, wasn't it?
No, that's perfect because as we sum up the year, as we look back, and as we look forward towards a new year, I mean, it's perfect to be able to look at what do we really want, and with Limbic Arc, and as you take a look at that entire picture of the quality of life, I love how that sums it up, looking back as well as looking forward, and so.
Yeah, we may look forward and say, okay, what are some areas in my life that can improve some of the quality? Where could I have more quality? I think we focus on health a lot because if you have your health, you have a lot of options that you don't have if you don't have your health. So it makes sense that that's a good foundation to begin with. But we ought to think about all those things,
Well, and
all
and
those five
then
areas.
with the combination of the Info Boost as well as with the CERT Info Boost, it brings you into that space where you can start to be able to look at those different aspects of life too. So Great. Dr. Cook, thank you. We've got a few questions. I know that we've got some questions here. Let's jump into a couple of them. And by the way, thank you for sending in questions. If you will send in your questions, we'll be happy to address them. We can't get to all of them. If you send in questions to Ask Dr. Cook at limbicarc.com, hey, we'd be happy to take some of those and discuss them publicly with this. So we appreciate that. First question, Dr. Cook, where are emotions stored? Does this affect the chakra points?
Well, the emotions are, I think, part of what's called body memories.
Okay.
So an emotion really is there's still some controversy about how do you identify or how do you define an emotion. But emotions are caused by specific peptide chains. And the emotion anger will be caused by a different peptide arrangement than joy will be. And so emotions are stored. They've got to be attached to memories. Now, I'm trying to get to memories, and the reason I want to is because memories are stored in our brain, but they're also stored in our body. There is a concept called an energy cyst or a body memory, and it's actually a physical construct that will harbor a particular memory. And I know they exist because I've seen them clinically with patients. For example, I've had patients who have been on the therapy table and I've been sticking needles in them, and I put a needle in a particular point and they have an immediate spontaneous outburst of an emotion. For example, they may start to cry, not because I've hurt them, because they just have this emotional outburst. Or they may start to laugh. Or sometimes they say, oh my gosh, I just thought about my swim teacher that I haven't, I took swim lessons 30 years ago, and this memory of something that happened just came back to me. So those things happen. And I think that we store memory in different tissue, and I'm not sure that there's specific tissue for specific memories, but our body is basically a big hard drive. We just put stuff away there. Now, does that affect the chakra points? Yeah, it does, because everything feeds into everything else in a circuitous kind of way. And if you've got a memory stuck somewhere that is associated predominantly with, let's say, the third chakra, then it's going to have an impact on that chakra. And that's one of the ways you use chakras in Limbic Arc and in other therapeutic ways, is you use it kind of in the same way you would use an acupuncture point, where it's an access point into the body and it has an affinity to certain conditions and certain memories, and there's therefore certain emotions. Well, I hope that answered the question.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, I guess the follow-up question to that, Dr. Cook, would be, regardless of where they're stored, the CERT InfoBoost, as we've talked about in the past, has been something to help with those emotions. Does it make a difference if that's, you talk about your acupuncture example where there are memories that are stored in physical aspects of the body versus your memory and other things? How does that impact CERT, or does it?
Well, the challenge is that subconsciously we create our own saboteurs. In other words, we sabotage ourselves because we have a limited perception.
Right.
And what can happen with CERT, and what can happen with any InfoBoost, is we release that energy, we release a memory, we expand a perception, and we now have the ability to see things or perceive things in a more compassionate or a more understanding or a more intelligent way. And the result is we get more functional lives. In other words, an example would be, and I've seen this lots of times, people come into the clinic, they've got chronic pain, and they've tried lots of things and it's never worked. And until we release the emotional attachment. And when we release that emotional attachment, they no longer sabotage themselves in a way that manifests itself as pain. And all of a sudden, their pain goes away. The therapy becomes effective. And that can happen in all aspects of our life. You can have a relationship that is difficult, strained, intolerable, and it's all caused by your inability to see the other person in a broader way. If you do a CERT info boost specifically about that tension or that relationship, it can expand your ability to perceive the relationship or to perceive the other person or yourself in a way that allows you to actually make more intelligent choices that result in resolution of the tension, and it improves the relationship. So,
Okay.
info boosts are fun, and the CERT info boost is also fun. I mean, it's you can get, I don't want to tell people that you should expect a miracle because you may not get them, but you should expect course corrections that create a better life. That's
Okay.
really what we hope to see happen. We want your quality of life to improve.
Okay. Which is right on topic. Okay, let's move on to our next question. And here's somebody that really is pointing right to this, Dr. Cook. He says, I've been using Limbic Arc InfoBoost for about a month, but I've not experienced any positive results. I felt more tired, unmotivated. I lost my job. Oh my goodness. And my financial situation hasn't improved with Prosperity InfoBoost. How can it help me? So, boy, this is a tough. This is a tough. Somebody's in a tough spot, right?
Well, it's a great question because this obviously can happen. When I was young, I had terrible allergies, and the result of those allergies, those allergies provided for me the motivation to look for solutions that were non-traditional. And it was that search that led me to this whole business of energy medicine and the things that we're doing now with Limbic Arc. Had I not had those allergies to the degree that I did, I would never have entertained things that are as goofy as what we're doing today. The whole concept of energy medicine was so foreign to me that when it was introduced to me, it was introduced to me by a friend, a dentist who was a credible guy, but it was still wacky. And had I not had the need, because I suffered so intensely, I would never have followed through with what he told me to do. But by following through, in 10 days, my allergies were completely resolved. And it was crazy. I mean, it was miraculous. Well, I think when I hear this kind of a story, I wonder, is this person kind of like I was? Is there something in their life downstream that's going to be life changing, but in order to get there, they've got to walk through the fire. And so my first answer to this would be hang in there and see what happens in 2 or 3 months. But so that's one answer. The other answer is you may be using too many things in the info boost. You may be having what's called, there's a medical term for it, but because we're not medical, I better not use it. But you may be having a reaction that is the result of you pushing yourself too fast. And the way to ease off the gas pedal is to use fewer items in the info boost. And so that would be the first thing I would recommend is go in and maybe use 1 or 2 or 3 items, and that's it, and just see if it doesn't improve.
Right.
And what leads me to suggest that is if you're feeling tired or unmotivated, sometimes that's a result of just pushing yourself too fast. If you lost your job, that could be good, it could be bad. And if your financial situation hasn't improved yet, there is a quote, if you go back in this presentation, There was a quote from Buddha that I used for the financial wellness, and he said,
Was drop by
"The
drop.
water bucket is filled a drop at a time." I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
essentially what he said. And we have to be patient when it comes to things like finances and prosperity, because it usually comes in slower increments than we want. We just don't go out and win the lottery.
yeah.
Anyway, so I would encourage this person to continue on, use fewer items in the info boost, look for the silver lining that may exist around this cloud, and kind of listen to what life is, the lessons that life is bringing you, because they could be miraculous. In a year from now, you could look back and say that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
So let me a follow-up question on this, Dr. Cook, is, somebody's obviously feeling a lot of struggles. I mean, it seems like everything's caving in on this person. Is it best to focus in on maybe one thing at a time in terms of info boost? I mean, I would imagine that, you would, they would try to maybe do a whole bunch of info boosts on a whole bunch of different things all at the same time. And does it get a little bit cloudy? Is simple good, in little incremental, maybe drop at a time, pick one area and focus on it instead of picking on all areas at the same time?
Well, and that really is the idea of less is better.
Okay.
You can overload yourself with this stuff. And I know some people like to put a lot of stuff in, and it's okay to experiment with that. If that works for you, great, but it may not work for you. And if it doesn't, don't do it.
Okay.
For me, I use fewer things. That's just the way I function better. So, yeah, you may want to focus on one thing, but keep yourself open, because you just never know where or what's going to come into your path. And, life has a great way of delivering good things to you.
I agree with that. Positive outlook is always important. Okay, Dr. Cook, last and final question. And this is actually pretty interesting. If Limbic Arc servers go down, are my info boosts still working? I think that in the news during the past month or so, there have been some examples where major web services, I think there was an Amazon Web Services account that affected different parts. I think it affected one side of the United States more than the other, or in different parts strategically in the globe. But I know that we're web based. I mean, how do those types of events affect Limbic Arc?
Well, in anticipation of those things happening, we have a redundant server system that we use with Limbic Arc. So we don't rely on just one server sitting somewhere. We have multiple servers sitting multiple places. And this recent outage that you mentioned, it affected certain places, but it didn't put us out of business. Now, would your info boost stop working if for some reason the entire internet went down? The answer is yes, because the servers would no longer transmit, for want of a better word. But the likelihood of that happening is incredibly remote. And even if you heard, okay, half the world's down, you're probably still okay, because we're so widely dispersed.
Well, it's interesting. I know that from Limbic Arc perspective, when this issue happened a few weeks back, it didn't impact many aspects of our business, but it did impact some. I mean, I believe that financial transactions, processing cards became a challenge for us. We had to wait until that was back up, because, we not only do we have the Limbic Arc system, but we also have partners that we work with, and they use different servers as well. But in terms of the actual Limbic Arc system and the redundancies, that's a great answer that helps to understand. So I thank you. I mean, we'll just keep looking, but we've planned for the best. We've planned for things to happen, and the redundancies are in place. So that's a great answer. So, Dr. Cook, I'm going to wrap things up.
Okay. Thanks, George.
Our next call is going to be on the 26th of January, again, 10 o'clock Mountain Time. Why don't you go ahead and just, while you're listening, why don't you just go ahead and put that in your calendar or set that up for you. We will be sending out a replay link of today's topic and today's call with Dr. Cook. And you can also go to our website at any time and you can see past issues, past editions and episodes, and there's some great information in there. So we'll make sure to do that. And also remember, if you have a question that you'd like us to address, be sure to go on to askdrcook@limbicarc.com. So anyway, we'd like to from Limbic Arc, we'd like to wish everybody a very, very happy and prosperous new year. We hope that 2022 already is just going to be the most amazing year ever, and I expect that it will be. So anyway, from all of us at Limbic Arc, Dr. Cook, thank you so much. I appreciate your time on the call. We look forward to elevated lives now, to being able to understand things a little bit better and to be able to have that quality of life in 2022 that's better than what we had last year. So
yeah, I think it's going to be a good year.
Yeah. So
thanks, everyone.
Anyway,
thanks, George.
Thanks. We'll see you. Have a great day.